I was continuing to get referrals. So I have a strong referral network from friends and financial planners and accountants. And these people would contact me and say, can you review this contract, or can you give some advice on this? And for 6 months I said no. And then I started to get a little bit bored. I thought, well,
you're on a boat sailing around, but you got bored.
Well, and teaching the kids, but I thought, well, why not?
Welcome to The Glass Ceiling, the podcast where business leaders share their stories, struggles and triumphs.
There is a lot in that. There's a lot of learning.
We sort of had different views on how the business should be ran.
The next 10 years looks like for South Australia.
Startup's the easiest. I'm your host, Marissa Hankinson from Wavebreaker, and I'm passionate about amplifying their voices. Join me as we explore the highs and lows of innovation, entrepreneurship and leadership. From founders to CEOs, our guests will share their insights, experiences and advice on how to succeed and make a lasting impact. Get ready for inspiring conversations and valuable lessons. Let's shatter the glass ceiling, one story at a time. Welcome to The Glass Ceiling. I am absolutely delighted to have you in the studio. We've known each other for a while, but it's going to be really nice to interview you. But before we start, can I ask you to introduce yourself?
Sure. Julie Height. I'm a lawyer specialising in wills and estates and business transactions.
So, Julie, you are a lawyer. You're running your own business now, but where did that all start from you? Where did you grow up?
Oh, I grew up in Goolwa, in a small town down south. I went to Goolwa Primary School and Victor High School. And then when I was 15, moved to Adelaide after my parents had broken up, and did 1 year at college out at Gawler. So from Goolwa to Gawler, opposite sides of the state, and did year 11. And then my mother had said to me, unless you've got any desire to go to university, and university was a really foreign concept for me because nobody in my family or extended family had ever been to uni, then year 12 was really just a waste of a year that you could be earning an income or learning how to earn an income. So I finished year 11 and went to secretarial school to learn how to be a legal secretary.
Okay.
Did shorthand and legal terminology and medical terminology.
Oh my gosh, that sounds actually ancient.
I know.
But so you were exposed as a legal secretary. Is that where you got your passion for law?
Yeah, that's right. So I, in 92, started with a big firm as a legal secretary. So I started as a filing clerk and then worked my way up to a secretary. And because I hadn't done year 12, I didn't expect that university or a degree was within my grasp. But I soon was inspired by those around me and also motivated by people around me saying, you know, you should do something more if this interests you. So I did a paralegal course at TAFE because I couldn't do a mature age entry exam until I was 21. Okay. So I just did further education during that time to just move up the ranks, and then did a mature age entry examination to get into law and arts. So I did philosophy and women's studies and a law degree whilst working full-time with that firm.
So how long did it take you to actually qualify if you were doing this? Would that be classed as a part-time student or because you had the full-time?
It was about 6 years, but I did some full-time. So I did 2 degrees over that time. And I was admitted in 2002. So I was lucky. I'd moved out of home when I was 17 as well. So I needed to earn money to pay my rent and buy my textbooks. And the firm that I was with, I almost grew up there. They were so accommodating. I would say I've got a tutorial on between 12 and 2. I'd put my sneakers on and run into uni and sit a tutorial and come back and work for as long as I needed to.
And what was this law firm?
Duncan Bashir.
I thought it was DBH. Yeah, I thought it was DBH.
In 1992, I started there and I worked my way up. And when I was admitted in 2002, I was practicing law with them as well. So I had I felt like growing up there. I'd turned
Yeah.
18, I'd turned 21, I'd turned 30, and then an opportunity arose to go somewhere else. So I thought, if I don't take this opportunity, I won't know what it's like to work anywhere else. So I went to another firm where I spent 9 years and had 2 children. And I returned to DBH about a month before my 40th birthday. So ultimately, I did turn all of my
milestone. Yeah.
I did not have a milestone away from them. So I returned and then turned 40 there. And worked there for 7 years before taking off on an adventure.
And this is where I want to talk about this adventure. So we obviously know each other from the peninsula, through logs, etc. You were a big influence with my eldest, with sailing. But tell us, what was the big adventure that you actually did?
So in April 2021, my husband and I and 2 kids sailed out of South Australia, up the east coast of Australia, along the top, and then sailed from Darwin into Indonesia. Spent a year sailing through the remote Indonesia, west coast of Sumatra, up to Banda Aceh, into Thailand and down to Malaysia. So we spent nearly 3 years at sea, educating the kids on board and doing a little bit of work remotely.
So you homeschooled Will and what's your youngest? Oscar. Yeah. And Sam was doing his PhD.
He was doing his PhD
on board.
Yes.
And you became what was your name of your business? Was it something like the sail? I was following you. Were you like the sailing?
The sailing lawyer. So originally it was my intention to have at least a year off because I'd always wanted to do my own thing. I love what I do and I never had any desire to do anything else. But I thought, we'll have a year off, and whilst we're sailing around, I'll start researching on how to start my own business, and so that we could come back and launch the business. But probably 6 months into it, I was continuing to get referrals. So I have a strong referral network from friends and financial planners and accountants. And these people would contact me and say, can you review this contract, or can you give some advice on this? And for 6 months, I said no. And then I started to get a little bit bored. I thought, well,
you're on a boat sailing around, but you got bored.
Well, and teaching the kids. But I thought, well, why not? I should start saying yes to these things. You know, we drop anchor in the most remote, beautiful locations. I can pull out my laptop and review a contract and provide some advice. And so when we were sailing through Queensland, I registered my business just as a sole trader. And part of the requirement to practice as a sole practitioner was to do a legal practitioner's management course. It was a fairly new requirement.
And specifically in Queensland or for the whole of Australia?
So I was only practicing for South Australia. So I was only registered in South Australia, and all of my clients came from South Australia. We spent a couple of weeks in Airlie Beach. I should say up until now, we had spent most of our time just on anchor because we were on a pretty tight budget. Yeah. But this requirement meant that there was a few days where I had to be online studying this course through the Law Society. I think it was the College of Law. And I didn't want to be out on anchor, hopping into a dinghy in the morning and going to shore and looking for somewhere that I could set up my laptop and learn and then get out at night. So we stayed in the Coral Bay Marina in Airlie Beach for a few days where I did that course. And that, set me up to then I did all my business really through social media, so Facebook and Instagram. So like you said, I had at the time was just Julie Hyatt, the sailing lawyer, and I had my Facebook page. And if I needed some work, I was guaranteed at least 1 or 2 jobs every time I did a social media post. And I didn't want to be busy. I didn't want to be busy working and missing the experience of a lifetime. So I just wanted enough to help pay the bills and
So you actually set sail in 2020, which was
2021.
Yes. So how did COVID impact you sailing?
Well, it impacted positively. I think we timed it perfectly. So a lot of people say, did COVID inspire the move? A lot of people just got up and left. But to the contrary, we spent 5 years planning for this trip and watching YouTube and buying the boat and fitting it out. And so it was a 5-year trip in the making, and COVID just happened to happen. So we wanted to live on the boat for a year prior to our departure to help us earn some money. So we put tenants in our house and we moved on the boat. And our theory then was, we are so busy with kids' sports. They're both competitively sailing. They're sail training 3 or 4 times a week. We are working long hours. We only really come home and fall asleep, really, have dinner and fall asleep. So why not move onto the boat? And of course, we move onto the boat, and within 2 weeks, our 9-day lockdown and people starting to work from home. So, of course, neither of us had told our employers that we were living on a boat and we intended to be travelling. So all of a sudden we were trying to work from home on a small boat, trapped with the kids that are trying. So that was quite a challenge. But South Australia was really lucky. It was only 9 days. And in April 21, when we took off, the rest of the states started feeling the real impact of COVID. So we probably sailed into Queensland 2 weeks before the borders shut behind us. So we were very lucky in that respect. And we're also very lucky in that there was a big influx or surplus of online learning programs for children, because particularly Victoria, the kids didn't go to school for 12 months. So there was an abundance of options for me to help educate the kids on the run. So that was really good.
Good. So what was the community like when you were on the water? Did you have a community on the water? Did you meet fellow South Australians when you were sailing? Did you get any business from South Australians that were travelling too, or?
We didn't meet many South Australians on the water. There's not many people doing what we did. There's a lot of people that talk about it and unfortunately never get to cast the lines, but there is a huge community on the water, particularly in Queensland. I think a lot of people had used COVID as an excuse. We always wanted to do this and had set sail. So we, particularly in Horseshoe Bay, Maggie Island, by the time we'd got up there, we met about 13 other sailing families who were all waiting there for the weather windows to cast off wherever they were casting off to. A lot of them from there to the South Pacific, to Vanuatu or Fiji. We were heading north to Darwin, to Indonesia. So that was quite extraordinary to meet so many families and kids, but it had taken a long time to meet those families. So we'd done a lot of sea miles before we found that type of community. And then sailing into Indonesia, we were one of the first boats to enter into international waters after the lockdowns. So there was no boats in
I didn't realise it was potentially that isolating, that side of it.
Yes, yeah. So, but we did sail in company with another family that we had met, another 2 families. So we weren't completely isolated. We were very lucky to sail with friends that we'd found along the way. But once we got to Indonesia, it was a real exception to find other families on the water. And if we even find another boat, that it's an English-speaking boat, particularly on the water. And when we did, we would, I think the relationships that you form when you're on the water are really intense. So on land, it might take a year to find that depth of relationship that you would find by spending a week with somebody at sea. I think you really treasure those.
I think sometimes, like I'm from England, and even coming here, not necessarily that you gravitate to people that have come from other countries, etc., but I think there's just this bonding experience of people have been through what you've been through to relocate or whatever, and all of a sudden you've got all this commonality that just
that's right.
I think that's right. So you came back in what year? 23?
Yes, October last year.
Yeah. And so you've now formed
JH Lawyers. So originally, because I was working remotely and just doing little bits and pieces, I wanted to be able to come back and hit the ground running. And I didn't think that it would take off so quickly. So originally, we had to move in with my mother for a few months whilst the tenants were seeing out their tenancy in our house. And I was using co-working spaces and, hubs and just using daily rates when I wanted to see clients or going to the library. But within a few short weeks, it became apparent that I couldn't run this business from a suitcase going from office to office. No. So I took out a tenancy in the Adelaide Business Hub in Port Adelaide on Todd Street, which has been fantastic. And I haven't looked back really. It's been...
Because that's got quite a good network itself, hasn't it, the Adelaide Business Hub?
It has. So it has the benefit of a federal government grant and a state grant that helps people and people in business. So they have a grant at the moment that is women in business. So for a very small fee, you can take the benefit of 4 hours of mentoring in any area.
We know quite a lot of the mentors that have been appointed on that, which is great.
Yeah, and that's great because I have a solid knowledge base about what I do, but I don't have a business mind, and I've had a lot to learn about business, and so it's been great to have that at my fingertips.
Yeah. So what's next for Julie Height and your husband and the kids? What are their goals now?
Yeah, so we always seek adventure. That was one of the things about our trip. Life is so short and there's no time like the now, and, everything goes so quickly. So we're always looking for adventure. The moment I got back, I started planning hiking adventures to do by myself. Oh, yeah,
because you've just done your big trek.
I just did a 6-day trek in Larapinta in Alice Springs, which was amazing. But the boys are into sailing, so both of them are sailing the Elliots at the CYC, but also sailing 420s through Largs Bay Sailing Club, which is a beautiful community that we really cherish and missed whilst we were away. But Will, my oldest, and his mate are looking to do the Worlds in Turkey next year. So that'll hopefully be our next family adventure to Turkey.
Is that going to be in the 420s?
Yes, in the 420s. And we'll see where, because Oscar's only just gone into the 420s, so we'll see where that takes him. And we're always looking for adventure. And we've got, of course, met other families at sea that have some big passages ahead of them. Another family that we met and we spent a lot of time with on the water have just gone from Malaysia to Sri Lanka, and now they're in South Africa, but they'll need to go around the bottom of the Horn and up into the Med eventually. So I think we'll join them for a leg of that in the near future. And so, we've always got something on the horizon.
It's great that you're so busy, even though the business... So when did you formally launch the business? Was it straight in October 23?
I launched it while we were sailing. So I took out I came back still working and I took out the lease in December last year. So,
so it's going well for you. So what kind of clients are you working for, or how do people refer to you?
I'm doing a lot of wills and estates, but estate administration, so grants of probate and letters of administration. And that's where I want to build my business. So I've got probably 4 components of my practice: wills and estates planning, wills and estates administration, like grants of probate, and commercial, so sale and purchase of businesses, leasing, and that commercial pot is growing. And I want my estate administration pot to grow and that to slow down.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. No problem at all. Hopefully this will help you.
Yes.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of The Glass Ceiling. If you've liked what you heard, please subscribe, as we'd love to have you as part of our community. We're grateful to our guests for sharing their inspiring stories and insights with us. This podcast was brought to you by Wavebreaker. Join us next time as we shatter the glass ceiling, one story at a time.